Welcome to the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club with your host, the man from the land of Lincoln Heights, that is, David Hernandez, and from the city of San Fernando, Jeffy Gergenti. You heard it right, Hispanic Republicans. Why? Because brown is the new red, Republican red. So listen up and hear what being a Republican is really all about. Faith, family, and free enterprise. It's time to wake up and see how the chorizo is made and smell the menudo. And who knows, you just may be a Republican after all.
Well, welcome everybody. It's Saturday night, and here we are coming to you live from the C&M Metal Studios in beautiful Glendale, California. And I'm looking over to my left, your right, and there is Mr. Don Carlos Monroe himself. Welcome, Don.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, I'm dragged in here early. We have some special guests. So, and Jeffy's again. She's here with us in spirit.
Yep.
So, we figured we can throw some more bodies at this radio thing.
Well, I'm looking around this room and everybody's brown. Well,
what?
Just about, almost. Except for the güero from Nuevo Mexico.
I'm Hispanic.
That's right. Okay.
100% Latino.
So that voice there is none other than the son of Levi Martinez.
Yes,
and that is Emilio Martinez.
Emilio Martinez.
And Emilio from Nuevo Mexico, but your father, what?
No, my dad was from New Mexico, Taos.
Okay.
But I was born in Pueblo, Colorado, home to the biggest bunch of Latinos there in southern Colorado.
All right.
Yeah.
And to your side there is Benito Bernal. Welcome, Benny.
Orale, how's everybody doing tonight?
Now, Benny, you're one of 10 kids.
The youngest of 10, yes. Youngest of 10, born and raised here in the city of Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm. Your family background, I know that, were you growing up, you were picking cucumbers from...
Yeah, we used to live in a Hardy Lane camp up in Lodi, so we used to work the fields when I was 6 years old. It was quite a story, though. My older brothers and sisters were involved with the Chavez movement and a lot of the Chicano movement going way back when in the 60s and 70s.
Okay, and you were involved with organized labor, vice president of SEIU Local 99?
Yes, elected by the members, not appointed by the International, and then we started our club called the Chiamericanos, my co-founder, Jerry Salas from the band El Chicano, which is also on the air, so shout out to you, Jerry Salas.
All right, so Jerry, so welcome everyone, and now, Don, your mother was from Mexico, right?
Yep.
And now your father also from Mexico?
No.
Where was your father from?
No, Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
Over 100 years here.
Mm-hmm.
Creole, Black, Native American, group of folks, which means we're... On my dad's side, we're pretty short-tempered.
Well, Creole, isn't it like a hot-tempered?
Yeah, food's spicy, and so is our personality.
Yep. All right. Well,
handle with care.
Handle with care.
This is actually kind of like a history-making show tonight. So we're going to go ahead to our guest, and we're going to bring on a very dear friend, Mr. Rees Lloyd. Let's go ahead and bring on Rees Lloyd, and we'll bring on Rees for 1 minute first, and to bring up what are we acknowledging this evening, and then we're going to bring on a very special guest, Dr. Jose Angel Gutierrez. Rees, welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Now that I'm here, I can just say the sword of justice is unsheathed, as we're going to be talking about Reies Lopez Tijerina, the anniversary of the courthouse raid, the famous courthouse raid on June 5th in 1967. And it's about 56 years, half a century. And there's a lot of lessons to be learned from Reies, to the integrity that he brought to his mission and the courage. And I would hope that people leave here, especially after hearing from Jose Angel Gutierrez, who was one of the four horsemen with Reies back in the day. It was Reies and Cesar Chavez, Corky Gonzalez in Denver, and Jose Angel in Texas. So I am looking forward to hearing what he has to say. I don't know if you've read his books. If not, they ought to be required reading for everybody in the country to know what really transpired, what people are really up against, and what it takes to stand up and say no to the injustices that were inflicted on Reies and the people at that time. as he fought to get the recognition of the land grants, the failure of the government to fulfill its promises, and to deprive people of those lands, turn them into poverty, many becoming migrant farm workers. If they had what the Treaty of Guadalupe had said they should have, they would have been successful and not had any poverty.
Well, absolutely. And so let's go ahead and let's welcome Dr. Gutierrez. Welcome. We're very pleased and honored to have you with us tonight.
Yes. Well, thank you for the invitation, and thank Reies for thinking of me and suggesting I be on.
Can you hear us, Dr. Gutierrez?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I hear his voice is low. You can barely hear him.
Yeah, we can't hear him.
You'll have to speak up a little bit louder.
Is that any better?
Rees, can you hear Dr.
I
Gutierrez?
think somebody's trying to silence an important Chicano voice.
That's
what's going on.
That wouldn't be the first time.
Is he calling?
You
from
never know.
Texas?
You never know what
Is
the
it any better?
FBI is capable of doing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think is going on. That's it.
Okay. Well, Jose, Dr. Gutierrez, we can't hear you. So you, if you can hear us, if you want to.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
There we go.
There we go.
Oh,
Hear him now.
welcome.
through.
Well, now I can't hear you guys very well. I took you off speakerphone, and I can't hear you very well.
Oh, okay. Well, we hear you're coming in loud and clear, so that's great.
Okay, well, I'll put the phone to my ear so I'll try to see what you're asking or saying, whatever.
Okay. Well, welcome. You're here with Don Monroe, with Emilio Martinez and Benito Bernal, and our good friend, mutual friend, Rees Lloyd on the other line. So we wanted our listeners to know what the significance of June 5th and the Terra Amarillo courthouse raid, and what that why that took place, and what that represented.
Well, just a little background. Reies Lopez Tijerina was born in Texas. He's a Texan, Falls City, and that's where I kind of got to know him through his brother Ramon, an older brother who was just lived outside of San Antonio, and would participate with us in our activities in Texas. And so back then, without the internet and without the big money and credit cards for long distance calls and things, what we would do is travel to go listen to Malcolm X, or go listen to Martin Luther King, or we'd go to see Corky, or we'd go see Chavez, or we'd go see Reies. And Reies and I would speak in Spanish. Reies always wanted to speak in Spanish, even though he was very fluent in English.
Mm-hmm.
He was an organic intellectual, taught himself how to read, taught himself how to write. Just an amazing person, very, very bright, very astute. Not only had a sixth sense, but a seventh, eighth, and ninth sense about his doing. So to get short to the story, he discovered that we had what he called a baptismal certificate. That was the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Said that baptized us. It said we were the original owners of all these lands here, and that we had rights.
Right, and
So
that was the treaty between the United States and Mexico that pledged to honor those.
One of them,
grants.
yes, that was one treaty, the one in 1848, February 2nd. So he talked about that a lot. There was a subsequent one done by Tucson, Treaty of La Mesilla, in 1863. But the Guadalupe Hidalgo was the main one that got him notoriety, because he wanted to uphold the titles to the land grants. And when he discovered that the people in New Mexico still knew what they owned, if you think geographically, people came from Mexico. Easiest route was to California or to Texas. Mm-hmm. Going straight up into New Mexico and Arizona was a death. It still is. It's desert in Mexico and desert when you get into the U.S. Mm-hmm. You're going to die. So that's why there's very few people in Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. But the few that are there have an oral history where they tell every generation their past background. So when he learned of these land grants, he said, well, this is ours. We need to get it back. And he did the normal, peaceful stuff, petitions, meetings, marches, demonstrations, and that just did not work. So then he started talking about occupying federal forests, saying, well, this is one of the ones that Lincoln took from us, and Ulysses Grant, and then Teddy Roosevelt. They took all the other land that was not taken by Lincoln with the Transcontinental Railroad and the Homestead Acts. So he started doing that, and he became notorious because the prosecutor, who was a fellow Hispano, put out an arrest warrant on a membership and prevented them from meeting, and jailed quite a few of Tijerina's men in the courthouse there in Terra Amarilla.
Oh, so they had been jailed at the courthouse. Okay.
Yes, yeah. The ones that were going to go to the meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and the DA arrested them. So Tijerina organized a group of 20 men and his daughter Rosa, the oldest daughter. Rosa was the reconnaissance person, the surveillance person. When they got there, the 20 men and Rosa, she went in to scope out how many police were there, how many had guns, where the judge was, where the DA Sanchez was. Because Tijerina wanted to go arrest the Chan Sanchez. This is an example of Tijerina's organic intellectualism. He read the Constitution, he read the laws, and we all know them. We have an obligation to help enforce the laws. So when we see a crime being committed, we have a duty as a citizen to arrest those persons doing those crimes.
Amen.
So these citizens' arrest warrants was what he was going to serve on D. Sanchez and arrest him and put him in jail. Well, it didn't turn out that way. Sanchez was not there. The judge, the minute he heard that there was noise and stuff, because Rosa gave the green light, come on in. And so they all went in there. And the jailer, Locro Salazar, tried to jump out of a window, and they told him to stop, and he wouldn't, so he got shot at and was hit with a bullet. That was Tijerina's distant cousin, mind you. And so other people were shot and hurt. So that's then became the charges against Tijerina.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they called it a raid. But it wasn't a raid. He was serving a citizen's arrest warrant on the DA who had done something unconstitutional and totally illegal. But, people forgot about that.
Yeah.
So they became fugitives. And the lieutenant governor, the elected governor, was out of town at the moment. But the lieutenant governor ordered the National Guard mobilized. And they had tanks and they had soldiers and they had all kinds of people hunting Reies and his band of Alianza members.
Mm-hmm.
So they were on the run, and what the police did, they picked up all the women and all the ones who did show up at the meeting, and put them in a corral, like cattle and sheep and goats and pigs, in the corral. And that's Tijerina's new wife. He had been married for 2 years, and she was pregnant, Patsy. And Rosa, the daughter, who went to see the mother, her mother was also there. That's the first wife. They were all locked up in this corral and under police surveillance. It was pretty difficult because they were trying to convince Reies that if he didn't come back and surrender, they were going to harm the families. Well, there was no way to get a hold of Tijerina. He was out in the mountains with his son and a couple of other people, and a guy by the name of Jerry Knoll, who Tijerina kind of had made up was an heir to King Fernando VII or something or other, Carlos Quinto, something. Tijerina also had his moments. So they were all on the run, and Tijerina, when he realized what was happening with the family and so on, decided he would turn himself in and go argue his own case. So on the way, he was spotted at a gas station where they stopped, and his clerk called in and said, the man you're looking for he's just leaving right now. So they were able to arrest him before he was able to get down to where he was supposed to go. As soon as the word got out that Reies was arrested, the others turned themselves in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go into the trials, which lasted till the end of December. This was in June. So by December, they're all being tried on these cases and things. And other charges, like I told you about the national forest. Patsy, the wife, the second wife, had thrown a firebomb or a Molotov cocktail at one of the forest signs, and she was going to be arrested. And they said, "No, take me." So he took the rap for the wife. So that was a federal charge.
Right.
So he defended himself very, very well. In fact, there are books in the legal history, jurisprudence history, that his defense, self-defense as an attorney in his own defense, was one of the best trials ever in American history.
Mm. Well, you know,
he was not guilty.
Well, by coincidence, one of our friends here, Emilio Martinez, his father was Levi Martinez. And actually, Emilio, you sent me a picture with your dad and Corky Gonzalez. Gonzalez. And your father also, didn't he assist or advise with some of the legal?
Yeah, so I guess he was, these are like family stories. I've never really studied the history of it, but my sister actually just sent me an article where it says that my dad was actually the first attorney for Tijerina, but then they had a falling out of some kind. I can, in fact, my dad, he gave like a real no comment. My dad was always in the newspaper this time. In that area, so he gave like a very like politically correct no comment. I don't want to hurt Tijerina's case and all that. So, but I suspect it was that my dad was he was a little bit more involved with politics at that time. So he had run for governor, and even though he was kind of a radical in some ways, he still he still wanted to honor the party machine and that kind of thing. And he was a Democrat, even though he had Republican tendencies.
Well, I mean, the picture that you sent me from the Getty Images is at a fundraiser for
Tijerina. Yeah. So, like, my dad was one of the founding members of MALDEF, the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund, that I think came around the same time because of these kind of these civil rights issues. Within
that was a year later, in '68.
Yeah. So he was a founding member of that because they wanted to, again, provide, some kind of legal defense for these ongoing civil right disputes. And but then again, he had some kind of falling out with Corky Gonzalez. I think, in fact, my sisters were saying, these are all my older sisters. They were there for it. I was just a baby when this was happening. So they were there for it. Apparently, there was some gunfire at an event from Corky's guys. And so my dad was very mad, like, you almost killed my children. So.
But now your uncle, because we were talking about the nexus of all of this is with the land grants.
The land grants,
and
yes.
So didn't your uncle defend?
Yeah. So these issues were very close to home for my family because they were ranchers up in northern New Mexico and southern Colorado. And so, like, there was one specific incident. There was it was the La Sierra in Costilla County, there in by next to San Luis, the oldest town in Colorado. It was one of the oldest settlements in Colorado. And there was common lands there, but then a Texan named Taylor came in and fenced it off. And they weren't able to come and do their communal, like the commons. Like, that's a common European thing, actually, is to have the commons. But he fenced it off, and then people would go in there, and they were like violent. I remember my cousin telling me as a kid, like all the Taylor was like the boogeyman up there, that apparently he would torture children and that kind of thing. Well, but my uncle actually went to court with him. And that case, Lobato versus Taylor, that's actually on my mom's side. It was my mom's younger brother, sued him, and they actually got the land. It's one of the few, I was reading about it, it was one of the few cases where the land grant actually got honored.
Yeah, and so there was a precedent.
Years.
I mean, so Dr. Gutierrez. So the fight and the struggle to, bring justice for those landowners, because many of them didn't. Once they lost the land, did many of them become like migrant farm workers, or because they had lost?
Well, here's the deal. And people don't know this, and it's not taught in the history books at all. When the Treaty of Guadalupe was signed, and it did agree to honor the titles, but where do you go to press your charges?
Yeah.
The United States Court of Claims did not get established until 1887. 1987. 1987. I'm sorry. The one we know now. Now, it started in 1887 under a different name, but by then, if you wanted to press your claim for a land grant, you had to go to Congress. Well, there was nobody in Congress to pick up your issue. We have the Hispanic politicians much later, when New Mexico finally became a state, and it was one of the last ones because all the territories were not allowed to be states until the Anglos were a majority of the voting population.
Mm-hmm.
So these things don't get taught.
Kind of like gerrymandering.
Yeah.
No, they didn't have to gerrymander; they just excluded you.
Yeah.
What a shame.
So there was no recourse for these people. That's why Tijerina was taking when it was easy was the forest, the national forest. And then he was trying to be sabotaged all the time by undercover police agents from the State Department, from the Highway Patrol to the State Department and the federal government to the FBI, to you name it. They would do things like blowing up barns and killing cattle and cutting fences and all kinds of things, and blame him.
Right.
Because earlier it was a couple of other groups unrelated to Tijerina, the Gorras Blancas and the Gorras Negras, La Mano Negra. These were vigilante groups who tried to defend themselves back then. So they would say that Tijerina was now in charge of all of these people, which is like a century later.
Mm-hmm. So
there was one particular undercover agent who was very close to him, Tim Chapa. He was hired by the Highway Patrol, New Mexico, and sent to go and assassinate Tijerina. But the problem was that the Chapa, in walking around and being around Tijerina, began to admire him and like him and believe in the cause. So he actually thwarted several attempts to kill Tijerina and never did any kind of violence to him. He did participate in a lot of the illegal activities, and he even tried to railroad Tijerina's son. They went to go. They stole a Volkswagen, and they wanted to pin it on the kid, but it was Tim and another cop who did the stealing of the Volkswagen there in Albuquerque, and then they stole a check making machine and tried to get the kid Hugh David, even though he was called Reies, but his name was Hugh David. They tried to get him to hold the check-making machine in his hands to get his fingerprints on it, to blame him for the break-in and the stealing of that machine and making all those checks. But the kid never bought into that. He was wise to the ways.
Right.
And they kidnapped the daughter. They tried to rape her. All kinds of things that they did to the family. They bombed his office, bombed his house, bombed his cars, you name it, and all that Tijerina went through it. And he put most of that stuff down in his diary. But the problem was, he wrote this book, Mi Lucha por la Tierra. It was about almost 600 pages in Spanish, published in Mexico. Well, we don't look at us. We're talking English. We don't read in Spanish, and Tijerina would refuse to put it in English. So I finally did it in the year 2000 because I thought it was an important lesson.
Well, you've written like 17 books. I mean, on really. Bringing to light a lot of the historical stuff that many people don't know, and then also we wanted to cover, the creation of the Chicano movement, because now, Benito, your family, like you said, starting, with some of the family members with Cesar Chavez here in California, and getting involved in the Chicano movement as yourself. Did you have any questions for Dr. Gutierrez?
Well, the only question I have, Doctor, is being in the, that it seems to be that some of the leaders today, Latino leaders, want to change the history In your opinion, in your experience with working with Cesar Chavez, we've always known him to be a very conservative man. And many people say that he was even a Republican. What do you know about that?
No, he wasn't a Republican. He would tell you he was a Kennedy Democrat. But he was conservative in the sense that he was against the undocumented labor from Mexico. He started way back from the Bracero program. He was against that. But so was Ernesto Galarza, who was a precursor to Chavez. There was a lot of people, the JF Forum, the LULAC, they all were against the Bracero program. So that was not an unusual position to take, but it is unusual now because we want to realize that most of us are here because of the millions of people since 1910 and earlier who came leaving Mexican violence to come to the United States. So that's an example. But Reies was the only one who was always very fluent in reading and writing Spanish. Refused to make movies in English. They offered him contracts to do his movie in English, and he refused. He ended up doing some podunk, crazy, stupid movie in Mexico because they featured the daughter, and he wanted to promote his daughter to make her a movie star. So she had a fabulous voice. That's another episode that nobody talks about. She was a fantastic singer, but never got a chance to go beyond that.
Now, Rees, we only have a little bit of time left. The spine that's been going on with the FBI today, that was pretty prevalent back then as well, right?
Well, yeah, it certainly was, and I think the best...
We can't hear him.
Oh, can you hear us, Rees?
They got him.
And we're back with Don Monroe and our two guests online, Mr. Rees Lloyd and Dr. Jose Angel Gutierrez, and our special in-studio panel, Emilio Martinez and Benito Bernal. Rees,
Si se puede.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Okay, great. Now we go ahead.
This issue of the FBI doing what's being exposed again now, all of that took place against Reies Lopez Tijerina. And Jose Angel has written a really outstanding book, Tracking King
Tiger, and also
Tracking King Tiger.
How about the Eagle Has Eyes as well? That one too.
Oh yeah, well I've written a lot.
Yeah, on the issue of the FBI violating people's rights, the way as you really raised that what they were doing to Reies was and to Cesar Chavez was really
the whole thing started.
Yep, you're breaking up, Rees.
Okay.
Dr. Gutierrez, can we talk a little bit about your book, Tracking King Tiger?
Sure. Reies told me at the beginning of how he was harassed by police and how he thought he was fugitive.
You're breaking up. Okay, better.
Well, Reies told me stories about how he was being harassed all the time, and how he was a fugitive from justice because he tried to help his brother break out of jail. And so I said, let's do a Freedom of Information Act. That Freedom of Information Act, became quite a tool, and I've been doing requests since 1976 because of what was happening to us in Texas and the rest of the party in California and Oregon and New Mexico, everywhere. And Reies, when he was telling me about the courthouse business, I said, well, let's get the information, open records from the Highway Patrol about these spies that are trying to kill you and these policemen that are trying to kill you. Well, they've denied me to this day. The state of New Mexico has not released one single document about all the surveillance they did on Tijerina, officially and unofficially and illegally. But the FBI, a year after the courthouse event in '68, in March of 1968, Hoover created what he called the Counterintelligence Program, meaning he wanted to put under surveillance all the militants and all the activists of whatever color across the country so that they could monitor them because we were potential subversives. The modern word today would be terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
So the surveillance of Tijerina from the FBI began earlier than that, but under the COINTELPRO, it began with, in earnest. Nationwide, that program for us was called the Mexican American Militancy. That's what the code name is, MAM, M-A-M. from the FBI. So once I convinced Tijerina that we should get his record, we did. We asked for him, and he got a whole bunch of documents. And that's what I started doing the writing. I'd already done the work on translating his diary, which is Mi Lucha por la Tierra. And there was a lot of interest because now it was in English, and people were saying, "Oh, we didn't know anything about this guy." So then I decided to publish this book on Tijerina about the FBI because I've been doing that. I think I've got about 7 books on FBI documents, and I stopped doing individuals. I did Chavez first, and then I did Tijerina next. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to die before I finish all the files I have on all these individuals. So I better go to multi-chapters.
Multi-chapters?
So my last few books, multi-chapters, yeah, a chapter on each different person, organization, and event. So I've got about the last 5 books have been on individuals and events and things. A multi-chapter.
Well, okay,
I even got one on Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz.
Well, yeah, I saw that out because I was looking at that one. Where was that one? Well, because I saw the one.
You can get out of Amazon.
Yeah, you get on Amazon, but I saw the FBI surveillance of Mexicans and Chicanos, 1920 to 1980, and then also from 1940 to 1980.
Those are the multi-chapter ones. Yeah.
And then with there was We Won't Back Down. And also
that's a biography of leader. Yeah, but the FBI stuff are the recent books. The last 3 are Bashing Boricuas. That's about the Puerto Ricans, how the U.S. has kept it a colony and destroyed every incipient movement of self-liberation and trying to become a state or independent. The United States FBI has just destroyed them every chance they get and killed a lot of people. Now, and then I did the Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at now. Lucille Ball, Desi Arnaz, the FBI Huck Files. What was that one about?
Well, this is going to kill you and warn the audience that any kids are listening that this is discretionary because Hoover was a homosexual. He liked men. When he met Desi, he just couldn't wait to get his hands on Desi, and he wanted to do oral sex on Desi. But Desi, and it was right wing, so they're telling good company. Now, Lucille Ball was a member of the Communist Party in California. In fact, she was the secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party in California. But love doesn't have an ideology. If you like someone, fall in love with someone, who cares what they think, right?
Well,
they had a stormy relationship, but that's what brought the FBI into their lives.
Right.
Hoover wanted to put Lucille in jail, but he wanted to keep Desi for himself.
Wow, that is an inside baseball story.
Yeah.
It's on our show, we the fact that we're having you on and we're covering this is, we cover a lot of different issues, and our Hispanic Republican Club, we're an independent Republican club. We're not chartered by any official organization, and we really look at a lot of issues and issues that cross party lines, whether, in fairness, a lot of local issues and things like that. So, we don't shy away from shedding light on bad behavior, regardless of who did it. And because if we're going to be able to work together on things, we need to be upfront and honest. I mean, some of my most liberal friends, and I make a distinction because there are some that truly believe, in the things that they say and the things that they do. And then there's others that will say that, they'll use the color of their skin or ethnicity to further their own personal agenda or their own personal
enrichment.
Yeah, enrichment. Yeah. So we welcome you sharing what you are sharing tonight. And Don here, as we always say that the language of the Hispanic community is not Spanish; it's hard work. And you're talking about people that worked very hard, and we see here in Los Angeles so many hardworking Hispanics that are being taken advantage of, and that's why Don has so graciously stepped up. His family is supporting the show.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, you know,
Well, as you know, I'm neither Democrat nor Republican or like either one. That's why I started my own political party, the Razonito Party.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I say what I want to say. I don't care who doesn't like it.
Yep.
and I think that's how it should be. I mean, at the end of the day, it's
Yes.
can do your ideals, do your thoughts, does your logic stand up to sanity?
That's right.
Because there's just a lot of people out there that have a lot of very lazy conclusions, and it's very easy to just be in a backyard boogie talking and just throw things out there, just kind of like, yeah, man, don't you agree with this and don't you agree with that? Well, I think now you're getting a generation now of, and that's kind of what David and the club has been trying to be out there activating a lot of the youth, is to, because they have these questions. They
Yes.
they want to know, were things always like this? Is this kind of, because they're coming into the world with a blank slate, and they're seeing all their other brown folks and there are a lot of black Hispanics as well, and they're saying like, well, we're being told this is how it's always been, and then at the same time, you have groups who have gone extreme on right and left, but more evidently lately on the left, trying to claim figures, warriors like Chavez, and make them out to be on their team, so to speak.
Yes.
And it's a twist of reality,
If I may,
right?
If I may,
Yeah.
the FBI has a lot of hidden histories in those files, and that's why I got interested in doing this work. In the case of the Chavez book, if you look at the title, it ends in 1975, but he didn't die until 1993. I have been unable to get the FBI to release the documents they have on him and the UFW and the wife, Elena, from 75 to 93. I've been trying to get Rees to be my free lawyer to sue. But those hidden histories are there, and that's why it's important to uncover them, because most of us, and you probably relate to this, you're overly critical about your own shortcomings. And if we fail or our organization doesn't succeed, we blame ourselves. We never look to see who helped us not succeed. In this case, it's the damn FBI right there sabotaging everything. One anecdote on the Brown Berets, they did this Marcha de la Reconquista, where they discovered that Catalina Island was never adjudicated to be part of the United States. So they went out there to claim it. And then from there, they decided to go. That's where they ended up then. But they went throughout the Southwest on this Marcha de la Reconquista, telling people what Reies was telling them. Saying, this is that land, we got to get it back, yada yada. And they kept running out of gas. They had flat tires. Their engine would go broke. Well, and the FBI records show that that's who was doing it to them. Every time they went to sleep at night, they would drain the tanks. They would slash the tires. They would pull out the carburetor, do all kinds of things to them, and they never figured it out. They always thought it was their own fault.
Yeah.
Dr. Gutierrez, one question: the documents you're talking about that the FBI is withholding, does a congressman or a senator have the power to request that?
Anybody does, yeah. You can request documents of anybody, any event, any organization, as long as they are already expired. That's why you can get the Chavez records, okay? But and then there's appeal process, but they will not release them. They tell you they don't have any, and that but they do. They didn't stop surveilling him in 75 just for nothing. He continued doing work. In fact, he died on the cause in Yuma, Arizona, in 93.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, Rees, thank you so much, Dr. Gutierrez. We're going to post your books on our website so people can do that, and they'll be able to listen to this show from our website as well. We appreciate you taking the time.
Yes, sir.
And now, are you still in Texas?
No, right now my wife took out a teaching job at Victor Valley, California. So I'm out here with her for now. But yeah, I'm still out of Texas.
Oh, okay. All right. Perfect. Just one question that some of our listeners asked me. With the different boxes of, growing up, I'm 74, so I've been I've been a Chicano, I've been a greaser, I've been called all sorts of names. Where's your position on Latinx?
Yeah.
Those are
Good question.
people that don't know Spanish whatsoever, so that's why.
Exactly.
all the Romance languages, Spanish being one of them, uses the O for masculine and A for feminine throughout all those languages. You know, but they don't know how to do anything in Spanish, so they come up with this X to shorten their LGBTBI plus Q.
So they've given us the opportunity to claim X because they're using all the other letters.
No, they don't know what they mean.
Yeah.
They don't know how to read Spanish, and they don't want to say I am LGBTQB plus. You know, so say I'm Latinx.
Latinx. All right. Thank you, doctor. Thank you, Rees.
Thank you both,
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, folks.
Great history. God bless you.
Thank you, Rees. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Okay,
All right. Well, yeah, that was a lot.
That was a lot of information. It's kind of like to digest some of that.
Well, here's one issue that really pops up is, you talk about the youth. Like, again, I mean, my father was actually involved with these things and was a character in them, and yet I don't have the fullness of knowledge about that,
Right.
what went on. I remember in high school I actually did my, we were supposed to do a big paper in history, and I did mine on the Guadalupe Hidalgo, and the Mexican-American War, and all the the range wars specifically between the
Right.
Texans and the New Mexicans, and and so I have this like passion for those things, but I don't have the full history of it
Right.
because we lose those
And
histories.
it happens in
It
every family.
happens.
I mean, my grandfather was like best friends with the captain of the Tuskegee Airmen, and I didn't know this until his older years. And I was like, "What?" And he started chopping up about all the famous people he grew up with in L.A. Being in the black community. That's from musicians to actors, etc. I still think to this day that the story of Safford and Sons was probably botched from my grandfather's scrap metal business, because my dad's name's Don and his brother's Orlando, and they had Don and Orlando, right?
Wow.
I'm like, that's kind of ironic, and one of the main characters on there.
Where's the
is-
royalties?
You know what? And it's interesting how my family, and still I think I share that. I like to be, private, but. My grandfather did tell me prior to him passing, he saw the direction of California. He saw the direction of, black youth. And he's just like, we don't start having these conversations outside of our dinner table, right? I mean, this place is going,
It's interesting.
crap.
It's interesting you say that because my father did the same thing with my name Benito. This was like 3 years before he knew he was getting ill, knew eventually he was going to be passing. And I asked him a question, why do I have this urge just to fight for people, to fight for what's right? And that's when he told me the story about his father that was involved with Benito Juarez and Benito Canales. And that's how my dad got the name Benito, and then I got the name Benito. So those things, like sometimes your parents don't talk about, those are the things that we need to talk about. We need to make sure our kids understand the true history because they're trying to change it.
Well, and I had a funeral earlier today. My great aunt passed, Conchita Castrone. We buried her in Westlake Village today.
Condolences, brother.
Yeah, and the thing was, I was standing around and I'm looking at everybody, and I felt a little bit different. And I thought, man, you know what? All the people here are, obviously they're older, but I remember as a kid, these were God-fearing people. As a kid, they were, it was like, you mess with the family, you got this whole swamp of just fierce people, man. I'm telling you, dude, you might as well, it's like you poke the beehive, man, But they were the kindest, most loving people as well.
Yeah.
There was the opposite side of it. And respectable. They were like, we
And
just
giving,
heard-
right?
and giving, but
Very
also
giving.
very self-educated. My grandfather
Yes.
was self-educated. He had all black history, black law, black. I mean, it's interesting because I've had conversations with David to kind of look at the parallels of the destruction of the Black American communities. where we operate our business today, it was predominantly, Black Americans. And it used to be they couldn't cross Main Street in downtown Los Angeles or risk being arrested, especially if you didn't have. There's laws, I think, still in the books. If you didn't have a certain amount of coin in your pocket, you could be hauled to jail.
Or you couldn't buy. One of the places where you could only buy property was in Sylmar, in Lakeview Terrace.
My grandfather couldn't own property. He remembered that too. I remember saying, "Hey, business is tough. Why can't we just sell some property and try to take another whack at this thing called business, right?" And he says, he's dead serious, stared in my eyes. It was almost like I picked a fight.
Yeah.
And he was just like, look, kid, I remember when I couldn't own property. So when I die, you can do what the hell you want. But till then, I'm dying with every piece I built. And, he had a lot of pride with that. And it's not just pride. I think it's, it's the American dream.
The sweat and the blood
behind it, the sacrifices.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it, and I think sometimes today, we don't really put too much focus into what property is. We've been kind of programmed that it's replaceable. This is replaceable. That's replaceable. Everything.
It's a dollar amount,
right?
Well, there's that thing of forgetting today. It's like, do people remember just what happened a few years ago with COVID and the BLM riots? And I went to Trader Joe's today, and I said, "Gosh, I haven't been to this Trader Joe's in a while." Last time I remember, we had to be lined up around the block. We had to get checked. We had to get just to go in there.
One case of water and one case of toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly. And just for how it went on for years,
right?
Already it's but people forget. People forget because they have to focus on their lives, and then frankly, bad actors take advantage of that. That a fact that people have to focus on their lives, and then they do what you said before. They have a lot of people use those narratives of the past to get their personal agendas. And and to enrich themselves, and they become leaders, and they're like that Reverend Reverend Chuck and Jive, I call him.
Al Sharpton.
Al Sharpton. Thank you. I know.
Oh, before
I'll be canceled. I'll be canceled.
I know,
right
Benny.
there.
You've got a party to go to.
I do, but I just saw the text that I got from Jerry Salas, and he had asked, we don't have the doctor on the line anymore, but he says ask him what he thinks about what the schools are teaching our children today.
And that's good. And you know what? And what we'll do is I'll send the doctor an email exactly that question. And if Jerry would like, I can put Jerry in touch with the doctor.
Okay, Jerry, we're going to make that happen. Did you hear that? We're going to get that. Maybe we'll get you out here on the radio show, buddy.
All right. And speaking about land, Don, Antoinette from Orange is calling in about an issue about land. Go ahead, Antoinette. You're on the air.
Oh, thank you. Hi, guys.
Can you hear us, Antoinette?
It's been very fascinating. How are you both?
Very well, very well.
We're good.
Once I finish, don't hang me up because I want to get a hold of Dr. Gutierrez. I'm La Mujer here in Orange County. I'm Antoinette, and I've always been a Republican. I've been meaning to listen to you guys a little more often, but here recently, my parents came out here after World War II from Houston, Texas. They were born in Houston, Texas. And here recently, we just found out through grants that my family, on my mom's side, we owned 146,000 acres here in Southern California, and the largest city was Long Beach. So, and things, of course, gradually was taken away from our family. But this is so fascinating. And I actually, in 1968, I was at East Los Angeles Junior College, did all that stuff. So this has been, for some reason, I think it was divine intervention. I was supposed to listen to you guys tonight. It's been such a fascinating history and story. But you guys, what they're teaching children in schools, especially in California, and I feel so, my heart is broken. They are lying to our children, lying about the history. It's shocking.
Shocking and disgusting, and what a shame.
Yes. But this is very good that you guys are bringing these stories up like this. And I'm very proud of my heritage, even though I speak English correctly, but I can also, órale pues, hombre, ¿cómo están? También.
Aquí andamos y no nos vamos.
Republicanos.
And I hate the word Latinx.
There you go. Well, and you heard that from Dr. Gutierrez. You know, that's people that don't get it.
Oh my God, it's disgusting. It's ridiculous. Because number one, I am a double X. I'm a woman.
All right, Antoinette, stay on the line and give your number. Or you know what? If you go to our website, Antoinette, send me an email, and I'll put you in touch with Dr. Gutierrez.
Is this David?
Yes.
Okay. But you know what? Please keep me online, though, because I want to talk to Sal about something, okay?
All right. Ryan, can we send her back to Sal?
Send it back to Sal.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You're very
Thank you,
welcome.
Antoinette.
Have a good night.
So, all right. So, and we'll do that too. I'll connect Jerry with Dr. Gutierrez, and he's in Victorville. So
Yeah.
that's pretty
Yeah,
close.
another story that just ties right in. You know,
That's right.
Look at that.
All right,
God
now,
is good.
Speaking of schools and children, and our next guest, David Silverman, is going to come in.
Oh yeah.
And this is Jennifer Kennedy will be here as well. I sat down with David, and this is a story that everybody needs to hear because it's not the direction that's going with them taking away parental rights. It's not a matter of what could happen, but what has happened. And if you take parents out of the equation, it is very, very dangerous. So thank you very much. We'll be right back. And we're back. It's already the 9 o'clock hour. Don, where did that first hour go?
It is done deal. You know, it's the time goes by really quick, and there's it was very juicy, had a lot of substance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we started off a little slow with technical difficulties, but hey, we're here in the second hour, and we got our a strong 5-minute break. So I'm sure many of you got your coffee, and
Be sure to wash your hands when you come back.
and wash your hands when you come
We know
back.
where you went.
We're all about
We know where you went.
sanitation here.
And we are ready.
We're ready,
for the
and
next-
we're here, and our in-studio guest is David Silverman. And David, when people hear that, I grew up here in Los Angeles, and so did you. I mean, there's like, wow, so many people are here from other places. That here you grew up in the San Fernando Valley,
North Hollywood.
in North Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I went to Satakoy Street School, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I went to Madison, and I graduated from Poly. And while you were, I was like Sun Valley adjacent North Hollywood. So there was a big difference from Riverside Drive and, say, Strathern.
Right. I was at North Hollywood High School.
Yeah. And and you went to, where did you go to middle school?
Walter Reed.
Oh, you went to Walter Reed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Colfax Elementary School.
Okay, so you're an elitist. You're like south of Magnolia.
Elitist.
South of Magnolia.
Oh, yeah.
Good choice of words.
All the elites.
Yeah, when we were growing up, we couldn't afford to go to the Fox Walk-In Theater on Van Nuys Boulevard. Van Nuys Boulevard was like Beverly Hills. So we had to go to the Lankershim Theater on Lankershim and Satakoy. So, sorry,
It said walk in. I don't understand.
Yeah, it was a little walk-in theater. And because they used to have drive-in theaters too.
We
And-
went to the Studio City Theater and the El Portal.
No, well, yeah, the El Portal,
yeah.
and the El Portal, they have some great events there still.
Now they do.
That's some great people there. But one of the things that we didn't really experience back then, and this is kind of we're leading into why you're here tonight, is there was some violence at school, but as you had more and more school shootings, and parents became more and more concerned about the safety of their children at school. And so at the school that you went to, and then all of a sudden you start seeing this, what was it? Let's start with the beginning of when you started questioning the safety of the school.
I never saw any violence at North Hollywood High School when I was going there. Nothing. But, I mean, we're talking 53 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, nothing happening there. Or Walter Reed.
All right, but how about now? What I'm talking about now that we started seeing some of these school shootings and things, and parents are questioning the safety of these schools. What was it that you did to bring some attention to?
Well, there was a post back several years ago. It was February of 2018. There was a Walter Reed post about school safety.
Right.
And they had the main entrance of the school unlocked. And I made a big deal about it on a post once. And it sparked all kind of controversy.
David, do you mean like a Facebook post? There was a Facebook group?
Right. It was the Walter Reed Parents Group. And they were talking about school safety. And this was right after the Valentine's Day Florida shooting. Just a couple of weeks after. And I said, this school is open. People can walk into this school and they can do harm. Anybody can walk into this school. Well, they finally did secure the main entrance, and so everybody was happy about that. But it should have been done without me posting something on Facebook about it.
And often that's what seems like these days. It really takes parents to speak up and draw attention to these things, in something that you'd think an administrator would already have been on top of.
Right, and so that's so you posted something there. But before you go to that, because, and this ties right into it, is we have a parent from Satakoy Street Elementary School calling in. So let's bring her on real quick.
Oh, great.
And then that way, because Jennifer and I were at that protest on Friday, and so let's bring on Lucina. Okay, you're on the air live. Welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. I'm here with Jennifer Kennedy as well. She was at the protest. And so...
Yes, and thank you for coming to support. We really do appreciate it.
Of course, definitely. We wanted to come. I mean, I hoped a lot of different people from other districts would be there because we had to support you guys in standing up because if we didn't, it spreads to other schools, right? So thank you.
Right.
Thank you for organizing your parents at Satakoy Elementary. That was... I think you guys really had to step out of your comfort zone, didn't you?
Yeah, and I mean, I know it wasn't necessarily portrayed that way on mainstream media, but with your type of radio stations and the smaller independent journalists, we're so glad we're getting the coverage that we wanted and being portrayed the way that, getting our message across basically. But yes, did it get us out of our comfort zone? Sure. But we really had to do it. And I mean, now looking back, I guess in hindsight, it really was a victorious day for us. I feel like we really made victory. It was historical. I don't think anything of this sort had happened before, especially for an elementary school. So I'm proud. I'm really proud of all the parents that came and showed up. And to kind of look back and realize what we went through was, unfortunate with Antifa being there and all, but I'm glad we survived.
Yes, and let's back up for our listeners for a second and remind them on Friday, June 2nd, Satakoy Elementary is a K-5 school in the San Fernando Valley.
5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds?
K, obviously down in the K.
Yeah.
And tell us in a minute about what they specifically were going to do, but our understanding was that there was a pride assembly planned, and that a book was going to be read, and there was going to be this LGBT pride assembly, and your parent group had contacted not only the administrators at the school but also LAUSD because the parent group viewed this as not appropriate for K through 5 kids.
Yeah, not age appropriate.
Tell us about what you had done to contact the administrators or the LAUSD before setting this protest in motion.
Sure. So I'll start from the beginning. Initially, there was a meeting held just at our school. It was between parents and our principal. We also had district members at that coffee with the principal event because this was the second time that this coffee with the principal about this specific topic was happening. So she realized that it's going to be controversial, and so she held a bigger one at the auditorium of our school. During that, auditorium meeting, they displayed the book. The book starts off with saying, "Once upon a time, families looked like this," and it displays our traditional family structure with a father, a mother, kids, pets. But now families look like this, and there's 2 moms, 2 dads, etc. Goes on to talk about other things like financial status, how some kids live in big houses, others live in small houses, etc. So that piece is kind of sprinkled in that way. I don't, personally, I don't appreciate the fact that it starts off with a once upon a time. Like, my family structure is not a once upon a time. It's my reality.
Right, like it's some antiquated notion that in the distant past.
You're so 50s.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like in the first hour of the show, it's the whole twisting of reality.
Fairy tales start like that. When I read a fairy tale to my kids, it starts off that way because it's a fairy tale. It doesn't necessarily exist. My family exists. So if they're doing this, and what, the only thing we kept getting from our principal was, we're doing this to promote kindness and inclusivity. Well, now I don't feel included. You know what I mean? So now you've decided to exclude 99% of your community that belongs here. How is this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can find 100 other ways to teach kindness and inclusivity to kids without ever mentioning this topic.
And in fact, they probably already teach that. We know what it's like in elementary school. It's keep your hands to yourself, be kind, use your words. They always do that.
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands.
Don't bite.
Right.
Don't bite.
Right.
No, definitely don't bite. But,
And
Lucina, I mean, I think there's about 500 parents at that school. And wasn't there a petition signed that about 400 that said, don't do this?
About 460 or so. I can get the exact numbers, but yeah, definitely about 460 signatures saying we don't agree to this.
And they still said they're going to go forward with it.
Exactly. So then, like you mentioned, we kept moving up. So we didn't stop there. We moved up. The part that was misportrayed and so sad and disheartening for me to watch on the news is, Mr. Superintendent Carvalho and the other Jackie Goldberg saying it was optional. It wasn't optional until we made a fuss about it. When we announced that we would not be taking the kids to school, we would be keeping them home. Only after that, when they realized it would be a financial drain on them, that's when it became optional.
Suddenly parents have the ability to pull their child that day when it hadn't been offered earlier. And did most of the parents pull their children that day from school?
So out of the about 500 kids that are enrolled there, I don't have the exact numbers. We can get this, but there was maybe anywhere from 30 to 50 kids that went to school that day on Friday.
Wow! Congratulations.
Stayed home. Yeah.
It's a loud statement.
One of the things that I noticed, because I've been to a lot of demonstrations, and especially Don, we went to Culver City, with your sister and all of that. But what I saw was really important. I saw a lot of fathers, uncles, and grandfathers. They were there in force. And the way that the other side was acting, I mean, intentionally trying to intimidate and to try and cause some type of confrontation. And I mean, I was there for most of the time. I left before the final before the confrontation that did take place.
You mean the little kerfuffle that happened?
Yeah,
there was a small kerfuffle,
but which was it was intentional. It was somebody that wanted to cause that,
to bait the other side.
Yeah. But
you're absolutely right. You hit it right on the head. It was my exact observation as well. I mean, we knew the moms would wake up, right, and the mama bears would be there, but the amount of dads and fathers that I saw there, I hadn't seen that many dads at our school the entire school year, right? But they knew how serious this was. They knew how much we needed them. Maybe they even knew about the danger effect, the safety effect. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know what. Obviously, they're very passionate about this topic as well, so they wouldn't ignore it or not come. But yes, the quantity was. It was to the point where it was. Noticeable. It was a noticeable difference.
Definitely noticeable. And you guys got a lot of coverage on many different Instagram lives that people were shooting that day.
Yeah.
And I saw one was it you in the video, Jackie Goldberg confronting Jack? Okay, because I wanted to know in that video. Jackie Goldberg is saying something through her double masks to you. So it was really hard to hear from behind, but it sounded like she was trying to get you guys to stop or end the protest. And you were saying, look, we tried to ask you. So tell us a little bit about that conversation with Jackie Goldberg.
Honestly, I couldn't hear a word of what she was trying to say. I have no idea. And honestly, before that day, I had no idea who I was talking. I didn't know who she was. It's great to now be able to put a face to the name.
And now you know. Okay, so she's
one of our
board president.
I'll take that upon ourselves as parents. We need to do a better job of knowing who these people in these positions are. So not a problem. Jackie Goldberg, now I know who she is. I could put a face to the name, although, like you said, double masked and all, no problem.
Yeah.
I don't regret anything of what I said, though. Yes, it's absolutely. The only thing I recognize is that she had an LAUSD badge on, and that's exactly, that's all I needed to see is, why are you now here? It's a little, how do we say it? Too little, a little too little.
Too little, too late.
Callie Gonez showed up as well.
And she's the president. Yeah, Jackie Goldberg is former president.
Right.
But
People probably never knew where our school existed prior to Friday. You know what I mean? So to come there, it's like when you push somebody over the edge and then now you come back and try to either flip the script or trying to run things your way politically. It's not going to work.
And then didn't she go in and actually read the book? She went in, and read the book to the small little group of kids assembled there, apparently. And then I think discussed her own home situation, her own marriage situation.
You're more aware of it than I'm so glad that came not from me. But
I read it in an article. I read it in an article. I was surprised to hear that she actually talked to the children about her own sexual orientation and her marriage status, which was fascinating. I did not know that she had planned to do that.
Well, when she first arrived, Benny Burnell was there. He was the one with the speaker and the microphone, and so he offered her the opportunity to speak to the parents. And all she did was laugh at him and go over and talk to the other side. And actually, Benny is calling in. I guess his line has been
ears
ringing.
are hot.
Ryan,
can't get enough of Benny, huh?
Can we merge Benny in just real quick? Because then we need to get to David. And let's see.
Well, I just, I think... Oh, there you are.
How are we doing?
Benny.
Quick, go ahead. You had a comment?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all I just want to remind the listeners to, remember that Callie Gonez was given the opportunity to speak to the parents, and not only did she laugh, David, the look in her eyes, the evilness that was seen, and then turn her back on the community and just walk away. Never forget that. That's what I wanted to mention. I wanted to make sure that the listeners hold on to that, because when she and others come up for re-election, and there's even talks about a recall against Callie Gonez. So we'll see what happens.
All right.
Thank you, Benny.
Thank you.
In fact, I wanted to add...
The parent committee that we've put together will be very actively in charge and going full force into both recalls and also attempts to... Basically, we have to occupy these seats, right? That's
right.
That's right. Change, we have to get there. So these will all be in the works coming very soon.
Keep us in the loop. We'd be happy to join with you. And
I'd like to connect with you. So I'll get your information after the show, and we can stay connected.
I just want to make one last point. So Superintendent Carvalho saying yesterday, again on air, that the parents, he literally said we were over-exaggerating. We're not over-exaggerating. Oh, hello?
Oh,
we got you.
You're here.
We got you.
Sorry. It again, so disrespectful to say that we're over-exaggerating. The reason why we're not over-exaggerating was exactly the point that you just made in saying she decided to reveal her own sexual... why is that important?
Right.
So if we stop here, you know what I mean? You give them an inch, they're going to ask for a mile. It's not just the simple, innocent book that we're against. It's the future. It's if we allow this, it opens up the floodgates to I have no idea what else we can accept. You know what I mean?
You're exactly right, and that's what we've already seen. And in fact, it wasn't just Kelly Gonez who was refusing to speak to the parents. The people there, the elected officials there, were the mayor of Burbank, Senator Henry Stern, Kelly Gonez, Jackie Goldberg, Superintendent Carvalho. We had all of these elected officials there,
and the state senator,
and Henry Stern, yes, Caroline Menevar, and they were all there, and not a one that I saw interacted with the parents. Not a one came over and even listened to the parent concerns. And I recognized Henry Stern in the crowd. And so I talked to him and asked him about his thoughts about what was going on. And once he noticed, I was on his side of the street, right, with all the LGBT activists. Once he realized I was there supporting the parents, his whole demeanor shifted. He stopped looking at me. He stopped making eye contact. And he was really looking for an escape route to get away from my questions.
Well, and listen, and don't hang up, because we want to have you give your information to Sal. But one of the things that I want to bring up is, we're hearing in the news, it was a confrontation over a burned gay pride flag.
Right.
And the fact is that little flag had been in the flower pot at that school for a very, very, very long time. No one ever complained about it. And so, for me, this seems like one of those Jesse Smollett type of things where, and probably somebody in their mind, well-intentioned, let's go ahead and let's set this little flag on fire. And so here you see on some of the news coverages, demonstrations and clashes over
follow the
burning
flag.
of.
They had to say that. I think they had to say that to get that Antifa crowd there, right? And it was very strategic because that flag was burned on May 22nd. The mainstream media released that 2 days before our protest, so they released it on Wednesday, right? It's like a whole 10 days after. We all knew about this, so why are you just saying, you know what I mean? Nothing makes sense.
Well, here we go. We get to see it front and center, just how quickly things can be twisted against a very, you guys are honest about your feelings. You're trying to express these things.
Yes, and
your concerns.
I think it's important to tell our listeners that a lot of the mainstream media, like even LA Times, said parent protesters clash with police. Well, that's false. The parents didn't clash, and in fact, it was either you or somebody else on the mic thanking the LAPD repeatedly.
Thank you, me, yes.
And you did a great job. You were thanking them for keeping this protest peaceful. Thank you, officers, and they did do a good job. They did.
Absolutely.
They did a wonderful job.
I knew our message was I knew they were there to hijack our protest. I had to do something to bring it back and make sure whoever was recording, however I could get it, I kept repeating, this is a peaceful protest by the parents against LAUSD. It's not against the community. We have nothing against the LGBTQ community. And the people that were there, I feel like weren't even there supporting the LGBT. It was Antifa. It was just people there to cause whatever they caused.
In fact, as a parent at the school, did you, the last question I have for you, did you recognize other parents there? Or
No.
were many of the activists, or most of the activists, not even from school?
In fact, we have one gay parent who we talked to, we met, previously, prior to the protest, and he was going to be there. When he got there that morning to drop off his daughter, he didn't feel safe enough to stay. So he didn't even stay for the protest to stand on that side because he didn't feel it was safe.
With the other people, you mean?
Right. That would have been, the only parent I would have recognized. I saw him in the morning there, but he quickly left because it wasn't safe for him to be there.
Right.
That is some
all right.
commentary.
Thank you, Lucine. And so stay on the line and give your information to Sal, and we'll be
thanks again for
connecting
everything you
with
did.
you soon.
Of course, absolutely.
Well,
thank you all for giving us this opportunity. I truly appreciate it.
Oh, you're most welcome. So, David, starting with that posting about the school safety, and then I think it was, you weren't contacted by the school right away or by any law enforcement right away. Didn't some time pass before that they contacted you?
Right. It was several months after that I was contacted by law enforcement about it.
About the post you made.
About the post I made and the comment I made, the way I worded the comment.
Okay, so for our listeners,
so
just
you
again,
became a suspect?
We're talking about, he came on.
I did.
Talking
Wow.
about
That's
having
what it
made
sounds
a
like to
post,
me.
just commenting about school safety, but suddenly the comment made law enforcement look at you.
Right.
Okay.
And what happened after they talked to
But
you?
it was a couple of months after because someone found the post about 2 months later and said, David Silverman said this. And we ought to send the North Hollywood Police Department over to investigate him.
Okay. And what was the outcome of that?
Well, you want to know what the comment was?
I do.
Okay. It was, well, it was a comment about school shootings. And I said the main entrance of that school is open. It's wide open. Anybody could walk into that school armed and do some cause some trouble. Even me, and they know me, they're from that school for 50 years.
Yeah.
That was the comment.
it was the even me. And they're like, oh no.
That was the way I worded it. It was even me, I could do that.
As if that was some kind of threat.
And my picture's been up in that school for 50 years in the music department.
Did they take it down?
That's a good question. I believe it's still up.
Now with a sign, if seen on campus, call immediately.
Yeah.
It's a new picture, updated.
But and so we're laughing about it. But what did that set in motion?
Okay, that set in motion some bullying of my daughter, and it stressed
Who at
out.
that time was how old?
She was 14 at the time.
Okay.
And
Who was a student at that school.
she was a student there. And it basically got turned around where she said that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you mean the bullying started? Making that as if she had made that threat.
Right.
Yes, yes. And that she had pictures on her phone of things that she shouldn't have had on her phone, which was totally false. She didn't have anything. So she got bullied there first. So it stressed her out quite a bit, and that was kind of the downfall for her there.
What was the bullying by the admin or by other students?
It was by one of the male counselors there, someone who has a reputation of hanging around young girls at the school.
Oh.
He's no longer there.
Oh, gotcha.
In fact, shortly after this happened, he was dismissed. And he went to another school out in Pacoima somewhere.
But so your daughter was then bullied over this fake news that she had put out this, and then what happened?
North Hollywood police came to me. They had a copy of the quote, just that quote, all out of context, not the rest of the thread about what it was. And they said, "Did you say this?" I said, "Yeah, I said it." I said, "Okay." They turned around and left. That was the end of that. It was nothing. They came, "Well, we had to come and check it out." I said, "Okay, you checked it out." Yes, I said.
So the school was aware, because I'm sure that if the police followed up, that you were the one that did that. Yet they still, your daughter was the victim and received all the repercussion from that at school.
And I remember it happened on a Sunday afternoon. The next day, the front door of the school was locked. And I was getting thank yous from other parents for speaking
who
up.
obviously saw the same or had the same concern.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, right before, because we're going to go a minute before we go to break, but we'll come back. But now, with your daughters, 14-year-olds, any 14-year-old has a teenage angst or teenage.
Yeah.
All of these. Especially now with social media. If they post something and they don't get a like right away, it's like they take it so personally.
They call them mood swings.
Right. They call them mood swings.
That's their expression at LAUSD.
So now, what happened next, or in the chronology, what happened as far as your daughter said something and people?
Yeah, my
overreacted?
daughter made a comment about that she was going to harm herself. And immediately they called the school police and LAPD, took her away one day, put her on a 5150 hold.
Well, okay, now hold it right there. So now, did they come to your house to pick her up?
No, this was done at school.
At school, in front of the other students?
In front of the other students.
Now,
I was not notified about this in any way.
Now, did they just say, "Please come with us," or was she handcuffed?
She was taken into the counselor office, and she was handcuffed and taken away in one of those cruisers.
And then they took her, to the psych ward?
They took her to the psych ward at Northridge Hospital.
All right. Did they call you before they left the school?
No one called me. I went to the school looking for my daughter.
After school had ended and she hadn't come home?
And she hadn't come home. So it was about 4 o'clock. I ran into one of the counselors who said, "Yes, this is what happened, and we tried to call you." Nobody tried to call me because I would have gone directly to Northridge Hospital. I didn't find out any of the information until they told me what had happened. "Well, your daughter said that she was going to harm herself, so this is the procedure. We have to do this."
This is the time that you're looking for your daughter at school after school.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
And had he not gone to that school, it sounds like you might not have found her. What if you had waited at home for her to get home, and then you went and you had nobody to tell you?
All right, we'll be right back after this break, and we're going to take it right from the psych ward.
Okay, from the psych
All right,
ward.
thank you, David. Thank you, Jennifer, and Don. And we're back with David Silverman, Jennifer Kennedy, and Don Monroe. And so, real quick recap: there was a comment made at Walter Reed's the school website about the safety of the school. Even though it was verified that you were the one who made it, your daughter was getting the brunt of it at the school, and because she had made a comment about harming herself. without calling you, the school called the school police, and she was taken away in handcuffs from the school to a psych ward without telling you. And so you find out about that, and what happens next?
My next step is to go to Northridge Hospital and claim my daughter, which I wasn't allowed to do. She had to stay there on a 5150 hold.
That's
Now,
for 72 hours, yeah.
I could have pushed it, I believe, and said, no, she's going home with me. But I took the professionals' advice. They wanted to keep her there for 72 hours. I didn't like the place very much. Who would? So she stayed for 72 hours.
Well, as a parent, okay, you're taking the professionals' advice. Okay, after she's released from there, what's the next advice that the professionals gave you?
The next advice was the counselors, your daughter needs therapy. And she needs to go to the LAUSD therapist that we contract with, the LAUSD psychiatrist that we contract with. And maybe it'd be a good idea if we put her on some of these psychiatric, mind-numbing, mood swing drugs. And they put her on a drug called Lamictal. Okay?
Oh, my son's on Lamictal.
Well,
I'm sorry. Not anymore. He was on it, yeah.
Well, my daughter was on it for 10 nights, and what happened, you saw the pictures.
Oh, yeah.
She experienced a near-death experience. She contracted something called Stevens-Johnson syndrome. If you don't know what that is, all you have to do is Google Silverman Lamictal. If you Google Silverman Lamictal, the entire story will come up. It was covered nationwide and worldwide.
And Lamictal is a prescription medication, and it's Lamictal, Lamictal.
Right, and isn't that also have like a black box warning?
It has a black box warning on it. It's not supposed to be given to anyone under 16 years.
And so at the time she took it, how old was she?
She was 14 years old. So she took it, and she was in L.A. County Burn Center, ICU, near death for 3 weeks.
As an adverse reaction to this prescription medication.
Just Google Silverman Lamictal, Lamictal.
And it'll come up.
Right.
The
whole story will come
This
up.
was set in motion because LAUSD called the police because she had made that comment, taken to the psych ward. Then they recommend, an organization, Penny Lane?
Right, Penny
Lane
Lane
is a
Therapy.
nonprofit that has a contract with LAUSD. And then the psychiatrist who's connected with Penny Lane or works for them prescribes this medication. Well,
I'm not a medications person. I never have, even for myself. I resisted it for months. I said, no, I don't want to put her on that stuff. I don't want to put her on any medications. But they have a very, very good way of talking a parent into doing it. And if you don't do it, you're the problem.
You're the problem. And so now that, in retrospect, it seems like, I think at the Burn Center, they recognized it.
Yeah. First, she went to Children's Hospital. They recognized it there. Stevens-Johnson syndrome acts like a burn. It burns from the inside out. When this peaked, she looked like someone had poured a can of gasoline over her and lit her on fire. That's how serious it was. She was intubated for 3 weeks, and it was touch and go. But they transferred her to the burn center at L.A. County USC Medical Center. It's an amazing place. They were absolutely amazing with her. They saved her life, 100%.
Well, like I said, in retrospect, now you see that this isn't the first time this type of reaction has taken place.
No, it's very common with this drug.
So why wasn't the psychiatrist who prescribed it? Why wasn't he? Aren't there? Given the severity of the possible reactions and that it's not unique, aren't there some type of test that should be done before taking that medication?
After the fact, there is a test to find out if you are allergic to this particular medication.
Which was not done?
Of course it was not done. The psychiatrist never mentioned it. He was completely uninformed about it. He said, your daughter might get a little red rash on her cheek. And if you do, discontinue it. Well, She took it for 10 nights, got the rash. It's too late. It was downhill from then on. So just Google the story, Silverman Lamictal, and you'll see the whole thing.
And one of the reasons why this story, it's important because it's your daughter and it's what you went through. But we're looking at this, and Jennifer can comment more on this. That we're looking at the bills that have been coming out of Sacramento that have been removing parents from the medical equation with regards to consent or even knowledge, and going so far as preventing parents from having access to their children's medical records?
This situation happened 4.5 years ago.
Right.
If this had happened last week, the outcome would have been different. And if it had happened during COVID, I wouldn't have even been allowed in the hospital. And I was there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with her in the ICU. I slept there.
So, Jennifer, what do you see the correlation?
Absolutely. I see all these issues that spring up in David's story where you're talking about, number one, the school providing therapeutic services or psychiatric services. Now, again, David here was involved as a parent. He knew you were aware of these services, but this absolutely connects with some legislation that is pending right now, and it's extremely critical that parents and everyone realize what's happening. And these bills, we've talked about them before, they now have hearings, and we've got to oppose these. And the first one is AB 665, and we call it state-sanctioned kidnapping, because this is a bill that will allow children to go to counseling at their school, get a referral to a therapist, all without their parents' knowledge or consent, and then be able to consent to have them taken from their home and put into a group home called residential shelter. That is the impact of AB 665. It will allow other adults, stranger adults to that child, to partner with that child to make the decision for the child to leave home and go into residential shelter for counseling. And that means, talk about not knowing where your child is. That means without parent consent and knowledge, and so that child does not come home. Just like David's child did not come home that day. This child doesn't come home, and now there's nobody talking. There's nobody telling any parent where that child is, because under AB 665, this is all about minor consent and no parent consent. Now, the important thing, again, that our people need to realize, our listeners need to realize, number one, we have to activate on this because this bill has been passed by the Assembly. AB 665 has passed the Assembly. It is halfway to state law. It is going to be heard in the Senate Judiciary Committee on June 13th. Guess what the deadline is to oppose this in writing? The deadline is this Tuesday, June 6th at 12 o'clock. And here's the crazy thing about our legislature. They only just sprang this on us. We've been waiting and waiting for AB 665 to be set for a hearing. We just learned it's set for a hearing. Oh, and suddenly the deadline for written opposition is this Tuesday. So we have to get it in. This is what parents need to realize about the shell game that is being played with AB 665, and you have to have the facts to defeat it. This is a Wiener bill. Number one, it's a Scott Wiener bill, so we know it's bad. He is puppeting Wendy Carrillo, who is our state senator here very locally in District 52. And District 52 is Glendale, Los Feliz, Echo Park, Lincoln Heights, David Hernandez's former stomping grounds, Highland Park, Eagle Rock, Sunset Boulevard. This is our local LA legislator pushing this bill that is going to allow minors to consent without their parents knowing to go into residential shelter. Wendy Carrillo will tell you that this bill is actually just about providing Medi-Cal benefits for low-income kids to get counseling, right? But it's a shell game because her bill is going in and it's amending a family code law that's been existing in California law for about 45 years now. That's the law that says kids can consent to mental health counseling and to go to a group home, but only if there's danger to a child. And the danger to the child is they're suicidal ideation, or there's danger to the kid at home, like incest or abuse, okay? But we call those the danger guardrails, right? That statute allows for Medi-Cal. to pay for services rendered to the child, again, without parental notice, right? That's family code. However, there's another statute that talks about minor consent to counseling, and apparently you can't use Medi-Cal benefits for that statute. You can't use Medi-Cal to just get counseling just 'cause. That's the problem with the legislature. They put that law in effect in 2010, and they didn't add Medi-Cal benefits at that time. That was on party lines. The Democrats did this. Why? They probably didn't do Medi-Cal benefits at that time because it was in the Obama economic crisis. There was probably no state money. So you have these two statutes that allow minor consent to counseling. And I know it's really weedy. This really gets into details, but you have to understand one pays with Medi-Cal and one does not. Wendy Carrillo is telling you that her law is going to make Medi-Cal benefits available to the kids. The way she's doing it is by going into that family code and stripping out all those danger guardrails where Medi-Cal will pay for counseling. She's going in there and taking out the guardrails of danger to the child, which leaves the statute open for kids under that code to consent to going into residential shelter with literally no parent notice and no allegation of danger at all. What does this look like? This is a normal, regular family with normal, regular parents, and maybe you have a disgruntled child who says, I'm mad, I don't feel safe at home, or
what
whatever.
if another child says, reports, right?
Here's the thing. There doesn't even have to be a report. I call this the just because.
Just because.
They're going to take a child from a family just because maybe the child says something. Or maybe the counselor encourages the child to leave the home, right? That is the problem. And here's the deal. If Wendy Carrillo and Scott Wiener really wanted to enable Medi-Cal to pay for the just because counseling for Medi-Cal kids, all they have to do is go amend an entirely different statute. Welfare and Institutions is the one that says, here's how you do Medi-Cal for youth counseling. That's all they have to do. They need to go over there and just take out one little word and say, Medi-Cal's available.
Well, they need the Medi-Cal and they need the patient.
Well, that's the thing. Here's the thing. We know that there's a growing movement, this narrative, that there is this need for group homes. Mm-hmm. And this sounds a lot like me, like they're creating a money pathway for kids to consent to residential shelter, which is going to require more residential shelter. Mm-hmm. We're going to need more money for group homes. Oh, and guess what? Medi-Cal is now going to pay for this. So suddenly we have money for homes and we have money to employ people in those homes. That's what it sounds like to me. The bottom line, you guys, the bottom line about 665 is it's poorly written, and it is going to result in children being helped to run away. Mm-hmm. And there will be no way to find that child. You dovetail that with AB 223. AB 223 is going to seal the records of minor name and gender changes. That child has disappeared. If you allow that child to go in and have a change of gender and name, and then you mix that with, and now they're in residential shelter, how is a parent supposed to find their child? That is why, then we go into, there's another one. On that same day, June 13th, we've got AB 957. This is the forced affirmation of child sex change. It's the one that's going to insert into California state law that affirmation of child sex change, child gender transition, is in the best interest of the child.
Well, and I hope that all of our friends that were at that protest at Satico Elementary School are still listening.
We need families to activate.
Because what we need to do is and with their group we'll set up a meeting session, because we should have regular information sessions so that they realize that this has gotten a lot further than they even realize. They're talking about precautionary. It has gone that far.
And when I say I want to tell David, I want to tell the parents, when I say activate, what I need you to do, I need you to call your state senators' offices. This is no more. We're not sending emails. Okay, we need to call and engage with the legislative aides in the senator's office. We need to call Wendy Carrillo's office. We need to call the Democrats and ask them to ask hard questions about what this bill is really going to do, such as if a child goes into residential shelter by herself, who's responsible for that child? Who has the ed rights and the medical rights? Who is following that child? And if that child puts herself in a home without any allegation of abuse or danger, I don't think DCFS is going to open a file. There's not going to be a caseworker. Who is following that child? Who is responsible for her care or getting her to school or, frankly, her dental appointments? Who's responsible if something happens to that child? And how are parents allowed to get that child back?
Right. And now, people that are listening, you can go to the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club website. Along the left border, it says Find My Representative. You can go in there, click on that, put in your street address, and it will give you a direct link to your assembly person and your Senate person.
And right now we need your senator because it's passed the assembly and it's headed straight to the Senate.
Find your senator, click on that. There'll be the address and phone number for the Sacramento office, also their local office. But before we go back, because I want to go back with David, Carlos from Carson is calling in, and he has some comments. Carlos, welcome back.
Yes, good evening. Great information. Now, a very quick observation. That gentleman that was talking about his daughter being
David,
under psychiatric care and the adverse reactions. You know, whenever there's massive shootings, I look at the background of these massive shooters, and I have found that many of them were under psychiatric care and they were being given psychiatric drugs like Zoloft and some of these, which can induce homicidal.
That's very interesting what you just
ideology.
What?
Yes.
David, Carlos, you mentioned the drug Zoloft. My daughter was given that drug first before she was given Lamictal. So,
yes,
both drugs. Yeah.
Just to reference real quick, the shooter over in Colorado at the theater, Aurora Theater, was under Zoloft, and he was under a neuroscience experimentation. The psychiatrist gave him the Zoloft. Also, the Columbine kids were under psychiatric care. And they were being given drugs, and many other instances they were being taken.
Good point, Carlos. Good point.
Was Jolly West from UCLA, who also was a psychiatrist, for Sir Hand, Charles Manson, Timothy McVeigh. So connect the dots. Okay?
Yep.
Anyway,
all right. Thank you, Carlos. Very good point.
Much.
Let me just say one more thing here about this. My daughter's story got a lot of nationwide coverage and worldwide. It was first picked up by Fox 11. Bill Maluzhin at Fox 11 covered it in 2 extensive investigative pieces. So it got a lot of coverage. The California Medical Board also contacted me, and they said they were going to investigate it. They contacted me once. I never heard from them again. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I can't stress enough to parents, if you are prescribed this drug, Lamictal, it's got a generic name. It's called lamotrigine. That's the generic that Medi-Cal pays for. Watch out. Don't use it. And I'm not saying it's bad it's for bipolar, for epilepsy. I have a friend who's been on it for brain seizures. He's 82 years old. It works great for him. But not for 14-year-old kids in junior high school with mood swings. That's what they prescribe it for. Watch out for this drug and look up my daughter's story. I can't stress that enough. Just Google it. You'll see it. Silverman Lamictal. I've said it before. I'll say it again. You got to watch the story and read exactly what happened to her, see the pictures, and see the dangers of this drug given to a 14-year-old in junior high school.
And I think the bottom line here is all about informed consent. Parents need to know what is being prescribed. You can't blindly trust a physician. You need to ask questions, read the ingredients yourself, understand the side effects. Of course, that goes into the vaccine context as well. But this is just a wake-up call for parents that you really have to be vigilant at all times when someone is prescribing medical care or a product for your child.
And if your child is harmed, and you're thinking about litigation, think twice about that, because that is the most complicated thing you ever want to get into.
Well, thank you, David. And as an attorney, I can attest to that.
Yes.
Litigation is often never the answer because it's so time-consuming and stressful, and often isn't really the satisfaction that people truly want at the end of the day.
And I just posted the Fox 11 story on our Facebook live thread, and so people can actually see, what your daughter looked like before and what it looked like as a result.
And trigger warning, the photographs are very difficult. Yeah. Poor David's child was absolutely, like he said, near death. Stevens-Johnson syndrome results in your skin burning from the inside out. She looked like she had been in a house fire, and it's very, very distressing. But the great news is, right? The great news is for your daughter.
The great news is she had fantastic medical care here in downtown Los Angeles, and she survived unscathed physically.
Yes, and
there's
so
a part two.
That's a happy ending.
That's the happy ending. She came out of it unscathed, no after effects, no long-term effects, nothing. And
Thank
that's
God.
rare because I've talked to other parents and their children have passed away.
And I have seen SJS, support groups of people who suffered greatly and continue to suffer and did not make it through unscathed.
Not every city has a burn center like we have here in downtown Los Angeles.
We're very lucky.
We are lucky to have that. Mm-hmm. So there's the two Fox investigative pieces. The second one is called Medical Mistake. So there's part one and part two. So if you could post both of those for your listeners to watch, it would be very helpful.
I just posted, and actually I posted the second one that the medical board launches investigation. So we just heard that didn't go anywhere. Well, Don, I mean, this is, look at it, 2 hours have gone, and it's...
we pack it in, don't we? We pack in a lot of information.
We heard tonight about Lucille Ball. Come on, it's like, do we still love Lucy?
I don't know if I heard that story, David.
I don't think so either, but we'll see that for the next one.
Yeah. With her son, Desi Arnaz.
No, Desi Arnaz, that the FBI director Hoover had a thing for Desi, I guess.
I believe
that. Earlier.
Oh, my.
Gotcha.
Skeletons coming out of closets just right and left.
But, and it was good. It was like, and that, so here you have Dr. Gutierrez reaffirming that Cesar Chavez was against illegal immigration. And
he is affirming.
Yeah, he affirmed that. Now he didn't.
They take every word, I tell you.
I know, right?
Yeah. So, and so, David, it's... and thank you for introducing me to Bees.
Oh, the breakfast place.
Oh, yeah, that's a great breakfast place.
Yeah.
Bees Cafe, North Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And so speaking of food, Don, June 25th is the LA Hispanic Republican Club Menudo contest. And Sal, is that somebody on the line for us, Sal? Or are you talking to somebody? So June 25th at the Mayflower Club is going to be our Menudo contest. We've already started inviting some of the entries. We talked to the owner of Big Jim's restaurant in Arleta today, or there yesterday. And so we'll wait and see that. I'm going to reach out to James's restaurant in San Fernando, which is my favorite.
Oh, and one more plug, David. Please, listeners, please. The stuff I discussed about legislation tonight, I know it's confusing. They purposely make it confusing. Simply call your senator and say the words, I oppose AB 665, I oppose AB 957, and AB 223. Thank you very much. That's all you need to say.
And as we close, June 16th, La Gente is rising, and we're going to be marching on Dodger Stadium.
Oh, that's good.
And so the LA Police Department has agreed to issue a permit to our very own Bishop Juan Carlos Mendez. And so they are organizing a march to Dodger Stadium.
June 16th.
And the Catholic Archdiocese is going to be providing free parking for those that want to participate. So there'll be more on that next week. There's also a protest on the 16th in front of Rob Bonta's office over the fentanyl crisis.
Oh, same day? So we got Dodger Stadium and Rob Bonta's office? Okay.
Yeah, so we'll do that. We'll do that as well. And we're going to have somebody from one of the couple of the ladies that are involved in that fight on the show next week. And so on behalf of all of us here at the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club, thank you, David. Thank you for being patient and staying there. Jennifer, thank you. Don, Sal, thank you, Sal. Benito and Emilio Martinez. Ryan, thank you over there, Ryan. And we'll be back next week. Be sure, and you can listen to this show on AM 870 The Answer website. Usually, probably Ryan's pretty good at that. He gets it right up there.